Marble Madness is one of the most fun, exciting, and challenging activities students will do at boot camp. It's definitely an awesome one to do towards the end. It's a summative activity to put it all together. Students are challenged on how long it takes them to move a marble down a bunch of plastic pieces of pipe all the way down and put into a cup. Each student is given a short plastic piece of pipe that's been cut in half, and their goal is to move a marble all the way down about 50 yards and put it into a cup, just working together. And if the marble falls in the ground, or if it touches their hand or their finger, or jumps and falls into their hands, they have to start all over from the beginning. There's two objectives. First, students realize that doing something slow and steady is way more effective than just being fast and sloppy, right? The job is not just get it done, it's to get done quickly, so you have to actually slow down and do it right and think about what you're doing. The second objective we've seen from a bunch of different activities is the idea that students need to learn from their mistakes. They're gonna mess up. The marble is always gonna fall on the ground several times, and they have to learn, okay, what caused that to happen, and let's not do that again. That's probably one of those activities you're asking yourself, is it worth the time and the energy to go get the resources to buy all that plastic pipe and get it all cut? And it is. This activity is worth it, and it's awesome. Again, they're about 17 inches long or so, 19 to 17 inches long, so they have a short length, not a super long length. Each student gets one. Every student in the team or platoon needs to have their own individual piece. And you're also gonna need some cups and some marbles to run the activity. Definitely wanna have a few extra marbles in case one gets lost, so have a few extra just in case. Now, this activity can be done inside or outside, but you definitely need a long, unobstructed path where students can actually work and get this done. So a nice flat area is fine, and have them go, from one starting spot, and you say, okay, here's your starting spot, marble starts here, all the way down into that cup. Also keep in mind, you wanna keep the groups relatively small. If you have 35 students, go ahead and cut that class in half and have two groups going simultaneously at the same time. Now, before you do this activity, you line all the students up and you remind them the rules, all right? So every single person is gonna get one of these pipes. Your job is to get it down from this spot all the way down to the cup. If it touches your finger, touches the ground, you have to start all over again. And also remind them when they have the marble, they can't actually move around. They can't move their feet. So they can move up and down all they want, they can tilt all they want, but they can't just have the marble and run it down in the cup and go put it in the cup. That's against the rules. Before I do this activity with my students, I always remind them they have a default mode. When I give you a time limit and a task, you're most likely to go fast and sloppy. Your default is to be, all right, let's go, hurry, 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 and you rush. And the trick to effective problem solving is turning off that default mode and going slow and steady. In fact, that's one of the key themes of boot camp, the idea that slow is steady and steady is fast. And I have the students repeat back to me, slow is steady, steady is fast. Now you're ready to start the activity. You start it up, and what happens? The students go fast and sloppy. They'll line up, they'll put the marble on, they'll try to make it go really fast because they're in a hurry, and it'll fall out. And it happens over and over and over again. And basically, 3, 4, 5, 10 times, the marble will fall out before they realize they gotta slow down and go steady. Also, before I do this activity, I give them at least 1 minute to strategize and come up with a plan before I start the clock. So I have them get into groups, talk about their ideas, so they can all kind of throw out different ideas before the time's actually running. And then we start the activity, see how they do, stop the clock, get their score, write it down on a platoon score sheet so I can compare it to the other platoons and the other teams. So some tips for this activity, definitely watch what individuals are doing. So you'll see them as a group working together, but watch for what individuals are doing so you can bring that up in the debrief session. Also, as a group, keep in mind that in the debrief session, you're gonna go back and talk about this idea of fast and sloppy versus slow and steady. And talk about how, you guys dropped it 10 times. That was just an example of what I said, your default mode. You gotta turn off that default mode. Also, it's a good idea if you have two groups going at the same time to have some sort of plan if that first group finishes early. So if the first group finishes early and the second group is still going and taking some time, give the first group something to do. And I do in my classroom is I say, all right, I want you to cut your time in half. So I put them back in the starting point and say, listen, I'll give you bonus points for boot camp if you can cut your time in half so they're working again on doing it. But it's super important to not cut off this activity early. So that second group, the one that's taking a lot of time, don't be, all right, we're done, let's stop. Right, we ran out of time. Give them the time they need to actually get that marble into the cup. That's the feeling you want, that excitement of that marble in the cup, and the kids all scream and they're excited and they achieve that goal. Now, if the first group, the one that did it faster, is working on trying to cut their time in half and they can't make it, that's okay. At least they had that first chance of getting it the first time and they weren't able to achieve kind of the bonus points, the extra credit. Now, when you debrief this activity, ask how'd you do it and why, then ask them, did this activity end up being easier or harder than when you first thought? And then why? Also ask them how many times they dropped their ball and why they dropped their ball and what did they learn about this activity. Students will report that it's all about keeping this thing flat, right? If once you have this downward angle and somebody else has it downward angle, that ball is going to be lost. The trick is to keep it flat. Marbles dropped here, I pass on to the next person. So nice and slow and nice and steady. Marble here, pass the next person. Marble here, next person. You don't slide it all the way down. You don't rush it. You go nice and slow. And that's when you go back to this idea of the default mode. You talk to the students about why it's so important to go slow and steady as opposed to fast and sloppy. And when you ask the last question, what's the point of this activity and how does it apply to the classroom? It's really important they give you specific answers, not just we worked as a team, we had good communication. Be specific. How is the marble like the classroom, or how is the cup? So if the cup is graduation and the marble is you, how do you get to graduation? What happens along the way? Let's say each one of these pipes is a class. Like this is your biology class, the next pipe is your English class. What do you got to do? Well, you got to go slow and steady and get all the assignments done for your class. Or think of all the different pieces of pipes are different assignments in a class. So I need to get this one done and worry about the next one. Then get this one done. And don't rush them all or else I have to go back and do things over again. So be very specific in the way you debrief this and have them come up with an analogy that says what the stick is, what the cup is, and what the marble is.